Namaste. Thank you for joining us one more time. Namaste, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. Namaste. Welcome. Welcome to the channel. We're continuing the reading of Master Choa Kok Sui's book, right? The Spiritual Essence of Man, the Chakras and the Inverted Tree of Life. We are on the I was gonna say on the unknown chapter, but it's called the unknown. We know what chapter is. It's chapter 12. It's not unknown, but it's called the unknown. Yes, so that's funny. Anyway, we're on the chapter the unknown. On page 179, let's do a quick invocation before we start, shall we? To the Divine Supreme and Absolute God, to my spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, holy angels, holy masters, to all the saints, the Divine Lord Christ, and to all the great ones, to all the spiritual helpers, spiritual elders, all divine beings of light, and to all the holy gurus, holy masters, and to all the saints. To the hierarchy of the divine holy angels and archangels, and to our divine higher soul and our divine self, we humbly invoke for your divine and priceless blessings, for your divine guidance, for your divine love, for your illumination, for the divine oneness, the priceless teachings, the priceless blessings, for the understanding, wisdom, protection, and guidance. For divine presence in this session, we humbly thank you. We thank you in full faith. Okay. Welcome, shall we? All right. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, we covered the higher soul and the causal body. And a week before that, we covered the Buddha nature and the spiritual fetus. And this was referring to the Incarnated Soul. Then we covered the higher soul and the causal body, last week, and that had to do with the higher soul, right? And then we also covered pure energy with consciousness and pure matter, and that had to do with the divine spark, right? So we were covering the three, the Ain, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Ur, starting with the Incarnated Soul, with Ein Sof Ur, the unknown aspect of the tree of life. Yeah, that's why, and this chapter is about that, the unknown. This week, the next section is a summary of all three, and this on page 179, the title there, the subtitle is "The Incarnated Soul, the Higher Soul, and the Divine Spark," and the author writes, to summarize, Ain, which is nothingness, the divine spirit or divine spark, projects a portion of itself and manifests as the higher soul, Ein Sof, or also known as Ein Sof. The higher soul, Ein Sof, extends and projects a portion of itself, manifesting as the incarnated soul, Ein Sof Aur, or Ein Sof Ur. In Hinduism, the incarnated soul is called Jivatma, the higher soul is Atma, and the divine spark is Sunya, or Paramatma. Should be Paramatma. In Tibetan Buddhism, right, and Mahayana Buddhism, the incarnated soul is called the Buddha nature. The higher soul is higher Buddha nature, and the divine spark is Kun. In the Egyptian tradition, pure energy with consciousness, or the divine spark, is called Adi, which means the first. Adi is also a Sanskrit term, which has the same meaning as the Egyptian Adi. From the divine spirit comes the higher soul, which is called. So, from the divine spirit, what does he mean by divine spirit? divine spark, yes, comes the higher soul, which is called Akua or Aum Akua, pronounced Omakua or Makua. The incarnated soul is called Ba. And he has a footnote there, number 2 footnote, is books by Max Freedom Long. So going back, it says in Malaysia and Indonesia, I am is in its higher form is called Aku. In the Philippines, the I am is called Ako. Exodus 3:13 and 14, chapter 3, versicles 13 and 14, tells us that when Moses saw the burning bush, he asked, "If the people ask me, 'What is your name?' what shall I tell them?" From within the burning bush, God answered, "I am that I am." In the Egyptian mystery tradition, the physical body is called Kat. The energy body is called Kaibit. In Filipino, kabit means one that is attached. It also means mistress, because a mistress is one who is attached to a married man. Kaibit means that which is attached to the physical body. That which is attached is the energy body. In the Hawaiian kahuna tradition, right, many of the spiritual terms used are amazingly exactly the same as that of the Egyptian inner tradition. And the kahunas, also called the incarnated soul, Ba. The higher soul is Aum Aqua in Egyptian and Omakwa in Kahuna. There are many other similarities. It is amazing that Egyptian teachings and terminologies have somehow filtered into the Malay and Hawaiian cultures as well as into other cultures. In theosophy, the incarnated soul is called personality. Yes, this term is used in different schools of psychology and should have not been used as such because it creates confusion. At the same time, the word personality does not imply immortality. The soul is immortal. The higher soul in theosophy is called ego. This creates another confusion because ego can be used in many ways. It could mean ego, as used by Freud. It could also mean pride. That is why readers of theosophy are confused because the terms are not chosen properly. The divine spark or kun is called the monad, another word that is very difficult to understand. Therefore, in the study of theosophy or the works of the Holy Master DK, every time you come across a term personality, change it to incarnated soul. With the word ego, change it to higher soul, and with monad, change it to the divine spark. Okay, going back to page 179, I would like to make a correction in something that I said. I in this footnote number 2, he says the incarnated soul is called Ba. The footnote is pointing to Cheney, to on 33, right? So if you go into the book, they have a list of on the footnote list, and it says here Cheney 33, and then number 3 is let me see, yeah, books by Max, and that is when it says in Hawaiian Kahuna tradition, many of the spiritual terms used are amazingly exactly the same as that of the Egyptian inner tradition. So you have books by Max Freedom Long, yeah, books by Max Freedom Long. So I just wanted to say that I switched them last time. So that's a great summary. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but maybe we can explain a few things. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys this real quick. Let me see if you can see. I hope you can see it. So this is on page 186, and here you can see the divine spark, right? The higher soul below it, and the incarnated soul below it. In the Kabbalist tradition, that would be the top one would be Ain, the second one would be Ain Sof, and the third one down would be Ain Sof Ur. And of course, my pronunciation is not the best. So, and here you see in Egyptian, right? Adi, Adma, and Ba. Okay, so show you that so that we have an understanding. So the author here is basically telling you that in no matter the tradition, in several traditions, ancient traditions, there's a difference between ancient traditions and modern traditions or newer traditions. So you have ancient traditions. Let's say even so in this ancient, so that there are like some modern traditions, right? But you may not find this information. You will find it, right, in from its predecessor traditions, or from different things, or you may have to do a little more work to find it. But in the ancient traditions, like say the Hindu tradition, the Jewish tradition, even in the Christian tradition, even though it's newer but it's still old enough, right? Um, in the in how he's talking about in the Buddhist tradition, or the Maui, all of these traditions are very ancient, right, and very old, and so they have all these teachings ingrained in them. That's why it's already there. In some more modern traditions, it's still harder, or it may come from the previous tradition that they come from, where they came about. But it can be found. So, but this is pretty self-explanatory. He talks about first the Kabbalistic tradition, then he goes into the Hindu tradition. Now, what is Atma? Atma means soul. Yes, right. So you have Jivatma, Atma, and Param Atma, like Param Brahman, right? So Param Brahman is the supreme God. Therefore, Param Atma should be the supreme soul, or the higher soul, the great soul. So, or Sunya. So that's why the incarnated soul here is called Jivatma, and then the higher soul Atma, and then Paramatma or Sunya is the divine spark. But he's showing all this, right? The summary is at the beginning, but showing you all this to tell you that it's in different traditions, not only in the Kabbalistic tradition. And why is he showing you that it's in every different tradition? What is the point? It's a universal truth. It's just like the halo. What are the traditions that do not have a halo in their art to denote spiritual people? What tradition have you seen that does not paint a halo around a highly evolved spiritual person? Huh? No. But yeah, but no, but even demonic stuff, even in the if it is, if they're trying to denote a higher spiritual being, they still have the halo. Can you come up with a tradition that doesn't have that? No, because they all, if not 90% or 90 something percent of them, if they're ancient, they always depict the person that is highly spiritually evolved with a halo around, their head. The question is, if they're so far away, why do they share this truth? Because there are clairvoyants everywhere. Clairvoyance is a natural occurrence. There are many clairvoyants, especially if they go into the spiritual path. There's going to be more than likely a clairvoyant there. Either people develop it, right, in the spiritual path, or they're naturally born as clairvoyant. Therefore, you will see a halo. What does the halo mean? It's an activated crown center. When the crown center is highly activated, the energy around the head, right, will be greater. You will see energy around the head. And how is crown chakra highly activated? The crown chakra is the entry point of spiritual energy into the body. So when there's a greater downpouring of spiritual energy, the crown chakra will be activated. If that person is constantly connected, there's a constant downpour, there's a constant activation. You know, it's normal that the person will have a halo around their head or energy around their head. This is a universal truth. It's in every picture of most, right, traditions, if not all. Ancient traditions, let's just say. This is because, and I say ancient because it is when they did not have the communication in between each other, is when you can see that this developed everywhere the same way. So, you can see it depicted in the Maya drawings. You can also see it depicted in Egyptian and in different other traditions. You know, of course, Buddhist, of course, Christian, of course, Hindu, etc. The only thing that may change is the color. Huh?
Same with the Holy Trinity.
The Holy Trinity is widespread as well. So, some newer traditions, right, may not believe in a Trinity, right? That's okay. But there are some newer traditions, some more modern. But even, let's say, in the in the Islamic tradition, they may not talk about a Holy Trinity, but still they have like 99 names of Allah, right? 99 names of God. Within those 99 names, there's one that is God, the love, or God the merciful, or the loving. There is God the powerful, right? And there is also God the all-knowing, which corresponds to the Trinity in all the other traditions, which is divine power, divine love, and divine light or knowledge. So omnipotent, omniprovident, right? Providing, so that's love, right? And omniscient, omnipotent, omniprovident, omniscient. So that's the same as the Father, the Son. So the Father, right? The will, the Creator, the will, the one that creates, the one that also is the will the will of the Father, right? And you have the love, the Lord Christ, right? Aspect. All are welcome, right? His time for everybody's sins. It's about everyone, right? It's the love, and the Holy Spirit is the one that creates life, right? The one that gives, the one that creates, is the all-knowing. The Holy Spirit is the one that gives knowledge, right? In the Holy Spirit we learn. And so, and also in the Hindu tradition, you have divine is the Lord Shiva, is divine will, right? The creative destruction. The Lord Vishnu is the preservator, right? So one is the destroyer, which is also creative destruction, to create, to destroy, to create anew, right? And then you have Vishnu, the Lord Vishnu, which is the preservator, preserves all. So that's the love. And Brahma, which is the all-knowing, because it's the creator, right? So he's the one that creates the world and everything else. He's the one with the scrolls and the knowledge, the one that gave the Vedas, or this, the knowledge of the scriptures and all that. So you have so God the power, right, which is in the Hindu tradition, Shiva, the destroyer; God the love, Vishnu, the preserver; and God the light, or knowledge, right, as the Lord Brahma. So the same happens, and the same happens with us. So as above, so below. So we are threefold beings. All of us are threefold beings, and all of these things are to remind us of that we're made in God's image. But what does that mean? Is that God has two a nose with two nostrils and snot that comes out like us, and spit, and two eyes, and this, not necessarily, it's he can and cannot and doesn't have to. It's beyond all that. Just like us, we're beyond this, because we're not the body, we're the soul. Can we have a body? Yes, but that doesn't mean that we need it, or that we have to have it to exist. So we are beyond this, right? Because we are a threefold being. We're divine light, divine love, and divine power. We're a being of divine light, of divine love, and divine power. The same as the divine supreme being is a being of divine light, divine love, and divine power. It's a threefold being. It's the Holy Trinity, just like us. And how are we divine light, divine love, divine power? Ain, Ein Sof, Ein Sofur. So the divine spark, the higher soul, and the incarnated soul, right? So we are a threefold being as well. So the divine spark is the will, is the one that, like it says here in page 179, right, projects a portion of itself. It projects a portion of itself and manifests as the higher soul. And this is important, because it's not saying it's taking a portion out and throwing it out there. It's projecting. What does that mean? That is still the source of, and it's still connected to. If you have a projector that is projecting an image into the wall or into a screen, if you take the projector away, does the projection stay? No. And I'm talking a projector, a light projector, right, on the wall. So you take the projector away, what happens to the projection? It goes away, right? It's moved with the projector. So it projects a portion of itself. I mean, it's still connected. And through that portion of itself, it manifests. Meaning, the divine spark manifests as the higher soul. So it projects a portion of itself and manifests as that. Meaning, it's still, the higher soul is still the divine spark. It's just through a portion of itself is manifesting, is projecting and manifesting as the higher soul. Do you understand? There's more to it than that, but this is the best way to understand it. And then the higher soul does the same. As above, so below. You understand? So it, we do as our parents, right? So we do as our parents, we learn. So the higher soul projects and manifests. So it projects a portion of itself, right? Manifesting as the incarnated soul. And what does the incarnated soul do? It pours of itself to create the physical body. That not only, but the bodies, chakras and all of that, everything. Yeah, the seeds, everything. So it creates the vehicle so that it can experience. So all of that is only on the first paragraph, which is 4 lines. And there's more. I mean, just understand that in these words, in these simple words, there is a lot of information. What do I mean by that? It projects a portion of itself and it manifests as, right? We said that, right? That's what the author is saying. But do you understand that there's a lot of things that happen in between that projection of itself? What do I mean by that? Long before the higher soul exists, where do higher souls come from? Yes, from the divine spark. But it's like planting. What do I mean by planting? So divine spark, right, creates let's just say like a thought form. And in that way, it's like a group soul. That group soul evolves through many different beings at lower levels in the mineral kingdom, then always tended to by the divine spark that, let's say, that planted it, that created it. And so then all this group soul starts also going now into the vegetable kingdom, into the animal kingdom. Then it starts every so often, it starts becoming more and more specific type of soul for all these different beings until you have, let's say, domestic animals and stuff like that. And then there's one of them becomes individualized. One of those, and the group soul is that every time, and every time there is, you have a soul with many different expressions of itself, many different bodies, many different animals and whatnot. Let's just say in the animal kingdom, just to make it quicker. So let's say a group soul of animals. So you already have a group soul, and this group soul already starts from different animals, starts into cats only, right? So you have lions and cheetahs and all that, and then let's just say starts only becoming more singular into cats, like domestic pets, and then which are the closest to humans, therefore are the higher. It is believed that they're higher in spiritual development. They're not the most fierce, right? Like lions or whatever. They're not the biggest ones, but they're the closest ones to humans, and that's why they're like the masters. Not only cats, but domestic animals are like the masters of the animal kingdom, because they're the closest ones to the next level, which is humans, into the human evolution, right? And so you have then and then it becomes of different types of cats. Then it becomes of specific types of cat, and then, right, this group soul is only about all these different cats. And every time an animal dies, it brings back all that information into the group soul. That's why all these animals, they already have all this instinct. They they're born walking and running, and they have all this instinct, and they learn from things that happen. The soul learns from all these things that happen. Trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. It starts getting more and more refined. And at some point, one of these souls from this group, right, from this group soul, one of these beings gets so close to human or so advanced, and it's almost right there in that threshold of going, is already ready to going into the next kingdom, is that it becomes individualized. That individualization is already, that means it's ready to go into, so all humans are individualized souls. That's the difference between humanity and the other kingdoms of nature, that we are individualized souls. We're not group souls. Maybe at a higher level, but that's for a different story. But we're individualized. We achieve individualization, right? And that individualization, the cognition, is when the divine spark then grabs that higher soul again. It's like a fruit that the divine spark planted long ago, so that when it's ripe, because it's looking for that fruit. So it planted that, the tree was born, all this, it flowered, and the tree is the same. The tree is a great example of how a group soul works, because a tree comes, it grows, and then it branches out. But from its branches, it starts becoming, then you have a branch, and another branch, and another branch. From a thicker branch to a small, thinner. It starts becoming more and more refined as it grows, and then it starts growing a flower, even more individualized. It's no longer a branch, it's a flower, and then a fruit from that flower, even more individual. So that fruit, what happens to the fruit? It falls from the tree once it's ripe. So it leaves the tree, it leaves that group soul. And that's when the human comes and eats it, right? That's when the divine spark comes, it's ready, it's mature. And it takes it back again, and it becomes one with it again, right? So it's ready, it's individualized, then it is a host, putting a portion of itself. Just let's say when you go to sleep, you only leave a small portion, your soul jumps into your astral vehicle, into your astral body, your emotional body, and it goes into the astral plane when you're sleeping and dreaming. So you leave your physical body, you leave a portion in your physical body so that your physical body can do its regular functions, right, of living, breathing, all that. That's why of the silver cord, right? So but you go out of your body. The same here, although I guess in inverse, right? So most of the portion is the other way around, but it pours a small portion of itself out into this higher soul that has been matured now, that has been prepared for all this time. Pours a portion of itself, and it manifests as a higher soul. And then the higher soul pours a portion of itself downward into the incarnated soul. So just this part, when it says, in these 4 lines, when it says it pours a portion of itself and manifests as a higher soul, yes, it's true. But understand that there's a lot. Even if we read this a sentence, it's just one sentence, but there's a lot in that sentence. But can you imagine having to explain all this? We're trying to convey an idea, so here, right? So the author is trying to convey an idea, which is very true, and it's all you need to know. If you want to delve deeper, yeah, you can look at the intricacies and all that. And even what I said is still a very quick overview. But that in itself takes time. It's a whole planting process. It's a whole, um, we learn through, God teaches us through nature, right? So this whole planting process, it's in place. And that whole planting image is is everywhere. That's why the Taoists use it for spiritual development. They call it cultivation. So you cultivate your character, you cultivate, your person. The spiritual development, you're cultivating all the time. If you ask them, how are you doing? I'm in cultivating. They're cultivating themselves, their person. If it is, children, right? There's a seed, you impregnate, right? That is, so the man impregnates the woman with a seed, and then the woman tends to it, right? You have to feed it, you have to take care of it, and the baby grows, and then it's mature, and it separates, right? Like the fruit separates from the tree, she separates from the mother, and then it is born. It's the same. So it's constant in everything you do. You become a master craftsman. How do you achieve mastership in your craft? By every day. Yeah, you can go anywhere to learn. You can go to university. You can have triple something. You can have quintuple degrees. But how are you gonna learn? But you learn by repetition, by learning, and you can learn from books all you want. But you're gonna have to go into practice. Once you go into practice, you're gonna really learn. It's not the same. It's important to learn from books. If to have training is very important. But at the same time, at some point, you're gonna have to do the work and practice, practice, practice. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. Right? Like massage, right? So you're a masseuse, and so you may learn from a book, you may learn from classes, but what do you have in your classes? You have practical the practice part, right? And also then you do it. Have you learned a lot through time? Yeah. Every patient is different. Everything is, you come across stuff you didn't before, you learn to deal with it. Stuff like that. It's cultivation. When the body of a baby is being formed, you see how the first the energy bodies are being formed. This is an overview. Then it's up to you to delve deeper if you want to delve deeper. And then you see how the energy, even the etheric body gets formed first, before the physical body, and all that stuff. So it's a process. Everything is cultivation. So evolution, right? So another very cool thing from this is to see the similarities in all the different traditions. I think it's very cool. The same points at the let me use it says, it is amazing that Egyptian teachings and terminologies have somehow filtered into the Malay and Hawaiian cultures as well into other cultures. That is very interesting, right? So, yes. The question is why, right? So there are many similarities in the world. The thing is that the world wasn't how we see it today. So the map of the world and of the continents didn't look always like this. many land masses, according to ancient scriptures, the land masses have changed. Some have sunk, others have risen up. Other so in different traditions they talk about different also continents, like the continent of Atlantis, the continent of Lemuria, the continent of Hyperborea or Hyperborea. And so, and I'm saying it in order of newest to oldest, right? So it is said that where the Pacific Ocean is, and all those little islands, was Lemuria. So Lemuria was huge. And extended all that way up to Africa and all of that. Ethiopia had a connection with Atlantis as well. And Atlantis was as big as the Atlantic Ocean. Not all, but like very big in the Atlantic Ocean. So the west of Europe and the east of America, part of Atlantis. Yes, it became broken in three different pieces, Ruta and Duta, right? And one sank than the other. And then it was the smaller island. It's what generally we see in whatever that was, kind of like in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean, more probably towards closer to Europe. And yes, so and which part of the Mediterranean Sea was part of. It's still big, and and the continents that we see, how we see them today, weren't there. But when some of the stuff sank, others rose, and so forth and so on. So there are a lot of teachings that came from those places. And so if you look at the Filipino flag, since we talk about the Filipino language here and tradition, if you look at the Filipino flag, it's a sun with 8 spokes. And the 8 spokes have to do with the 8 directions where the people of Lemuria left when it sank. And what do I say Lemuria? Well, in the it was said the Philippines. It is said the Philippines of Lemuria, and that whole area, right? So then, that when it sank, when Lemuria sank and broke in different pieces and sank, that went into the 8 directions, meaning they went across the earth and the globe. And that was pre-Atlantean continent. It is said that Egypt, a lot of the knowledge from Egypt came from Kush. Kush is another name for Ethiopia. Ethiopia had an Atlantean connection, and not surprising, also could it have a Lemurian connection, because Atlantis had a Lemurian connection, and it was on that side of the world, and that's why. So all these things coming together, and Ethiopia, meaning the whole of Africa, was called Ethiopia. Ethiopia means dark face, and that's how the Greeks called, Africa and all of that. It was all, India was called Ethiopia. All of that was Ethiopia. So, but its original name was Kush. So on the Kushites, and even before that. So you have all of these traditions merging together, and even the Mayans. There's a story about the Princess Mu, because another name for Lemuria was Lemuria. So the actual continent was actually Mu. And in the Philippines, there is something called escala in the Filipino martial arts. And imagine an asterisk, right? An asterisk. If I had, if someone gives me vanilla paper. Thank you. So it actually is like a rectangle with an asterisk inside. It's part of esoteric teachings in the Filipino tradition. So this is very simple, right? It's only this. It's only this. It's not the top part. So it's only this. This is called the scala. But some of the esoteric names for the scala, right, is Lemuria and Mu. And this is part of the martial arts, Kali, part of the martial arts, of the old martial arts called Kali. The new ones are called Skrima and Arnis, and those came from Kali, Kali. So they in Kali they called this the scala, like a scale. But at the same time, other secret names are it's not secret because we're on YouTube talking about this, right? But it's Lemuria or Mu. And so in this, so each line, right? Let's say this diagonal line has its adlo, the other one bulan, and what they mean is one means sun, the other one means moon. Then you have heaven, wind, and earth, right? And so they have different. So they're basically telling you that there's a lot of stuff in there, but also the 8 spokes are also pointing at the 8 directions where everyone left. So, but just that fact that it was also called Mu and Lemurian has been passed down since ancient times, like that, from different parts of the world. It's very special. So we have a very long history that sometimes we do not look into. But there is, as I was going to say, in the Mayan tradition, there is a story of the Queen Mu, who, after a coup d'etat by I believe it was her late husband's brother, right? If not her uncle, or but it could be interchangeable. But it's one of the two. It's a male figure that also aspired to the throne, and so he did like a coup d'état, and he wanted to overtake the throne. She had to leave. She had to flee, and when she fled to Atlantis. This is in from Mayan glyphs. It's a Mayan story. But when she went there, all she found where Atlantis was supposed to be was muddy waters. And yes, she was going by boat because these people did sail, right? The Mayans and everyone, and the Egyptians, they have found stuff in America and vice versa and whatnot. But that's not important. What's important is that where she expected to arrive, there was actually muddied waters, meaning Atlantis had already sank. And so they had to sail around, and she went to Egypt, and there she stayed because they gave her asylum there. And this is from the Mayans, across the world. But anyway, so yes. Having said this, that's that. Excuse me. Okay. So okay. So next week, I didn't want to go into the next section because it's kind of long. I want to have enough time to talk about it. It's called the Christian Viewpoint, and this is everything that we've spoken about the the divine spark, the higher soul, and the incarnated soul, from the Christian viewpoint. And after that, it's gonna say more about the Holy Spirit, right? The Supreme Being and the Holy Trinity. It's gonna touch a little bit on all of these things. and that we won't cover next week because that's a whole thing, section on itself. And then the week after next, we'll probably do the Egyptian Tree of Life, the Universal God, Solar God, and Planetary God, and then the Kabbalistic Cross and Practical Symbols. I'll try to do also on that week, and that should finish. Actually, I won't have time, so we'll do probably the Christian viewpoint. We'll dedicate more to the Christianity next week. So the Christian viewpoint, more about the Holy Spirit and the Supreme Being and the Holy Trinity, will be the week after next. And after that, and we'll do the Egyptian Tree of Life and the Universal God and Solar God and Planetary God. And we'll probably start the Kabbalistic Cross and Spiritual and Practical Symbols. And but really, maybe we should just do that the week after that. So, and then that will get us to the end of the chapter. But we'll play by ear. We'll see. But next week, Christian viewpoint, and leave it at that. Any questions? Yeah.
3 questions.
Okay, shoot.
So, the first one.
Next questions.
What's the
Master Choa used to do that sometimes. You know, when you ask something, and he doesn't want to answer, you say, "How about this? Isn't this?" Next question, and then he will just switch. That's really funny. Go ahead.
So, what's the equivalent of in this trinity of Brahman? Is there an equivalent? Or
Where?
right here. Like,
In what page?
What's Brahman on this three? The 3 we're talking about.
Oh, so we're not there yet. We gotta wait.
But we already talked about.
I know, I'm just joking, man. Next question. No, what page?
Which part of the Holy Trinity is Brahman? Is that what you're asking?
Sort of, yeah.
Which aspect? Light, love, power?
Are you in the matrix here, in the table that is in page 181?
Yeah. I'm looking at it.
Okay, and you see Hindu and you don't see Brahman, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's under the Christian viewpoint section, so we can't talk about it. So what happens? Why? So let me just say this. You see, he's talking about this in page 181. So there, if you can pause it, you can see it. There he says, well, I see the Hindu aspect, right? The Hindu, or right here on the top, the Hindu part, but I don't see Brahman on the section, right? So then, what happened, right? Is that what you're saying? Okay, so the thing is that this chart is talking about your, that's the whole about the universe. As there is a divine spark, a higher soul, an incarnated soul, there is a universal divine spark, a universal higher soul, a universal, there is different levels of this. And what does that mean? At a higher level, it's the Trinity. It's, let's say, the divine supreme being has this threefold being as well, in the sense that one is the ray of will, the ray of love, and the ray of active intelligence, right? So one is will, or willpower, or power. One is divine love, and the other one is, so divine will, divine love, and divine active intelligence, or light, if you want to call it that, right? Light, because light dispels darkness. Darkness is like ignorance, right? So symbolizes ignorance. Light symbolizes knowledge, understanding. So this is just telling you what we spoke about, the Ain Sof, Ain Sofur, or the divine spark, the higher, like relating to a human person, to you. And that's why in the Hindu part, it talks about Param Atma, and Jivatma. But here, all of these, where it says divine spark, heart, soul, incarnated soul, all of these can also be seen as, in the Christian part, as Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? Father, the will, Son, the love, Holy Spirit, the active intelligence, right? Then in the Hindu tradition, at that level, right, at the level of God, right? So you have the Shiva, power, right, or willpower. You have Vishnu, right, the preservator, as the love, right, and Brahma as the creator, and the active intelligence, right. The creator generally gets that active intelligence thing. Because if you imagine in science how the body is, scientists spend their lives, and countless lifetimes of scientists spend their lives, and the human race have spent their, countless of scientists building upon other scientists' findings, to learn everything that, even in the physical plane, how things are created, how things happen. And so imagine, to create that, how intelligent that being has to be. So the divine spirit being has to be just to create, how intricate and how amazing everything is. So, okay, second question. Running out of time. Go ahead.
What's the what is that? What's the meaning here of in page 179 when he's talking about the Exodus 3:13-14 when Moses sees the burning bush and God answered, "I am what I am. I am what I am.
I am that I am." What is your question exactly?
What's that? What do you mean? I am that I am. What is that?
I think I'm gonna answer that next week. And what is the third question?
I wanted to ask you, what's the relationship? Is there any relationship between God and darkness?
I don't understand the question.
Because when
Next question. No, just joking.
Okay.
No. Tell me. I'm joking with you.
No, it's just when they talk about here about
where
about Ain in the 178 pure energy with consciousness, they talk about and they compare this to a black hole or the nothingness. So I just wanted to know what's the relation, because I don't understand what's the relation of God with darkness, and I don't find any relation.
Okay.
I don't know if there. I don't know.
I'll try to answer both questions fast. We have 5 minutes left. Okay. So, first question, I am that I am. This question you have to answer yourself. So basically what he's saying in Exodus, right? There's a story. So Moses sees a burning bush. He starts talking to him, right? It's God talking to Moses through the burning bush, or what it looks like a burning bush, and the bush is not being consumed by the flames. And the flames are not burning him and not burning the bush. And the bush tells him, or God tells him through the burning bush, right? What to do. And then he says, who shall I say sent me? They're not going to believe me. I have to say, someone sent me. Who? They're going to ask me who it was. I need a name. Like basically, he's asking him, what's your name? He's asking God, what's your name? And he says, I am that I am. I am that I am. Right? And so, when you remove if you do this experiment, let's say you close your eyes You feel your body, and then you remove it. You feel your emotions, you remove them. You feel your mind, you remove them. Your mind, or your thoughts, you remove them. Do you still exist? You do, right? You still feel that you exist. You have existence. You still feel present. You feel something, that you are there. That is the I am. When there is no body to look at, when there is nothing else but that feeling that you exist, I am. That I am. That's all you are, is that I am, is you. Is that existence, that being. Huh? The true essence. And at a higher level, it means you're one with the Supreme Being. I skipped a whole bunch of stuff, but yes. It means that you are one with the Supreme Being. You are that. That cannot be named, that cannot be understood, that cannot be fathomed, that cannot be explained through words, because our words are limited. Beyond the world of names and forms, like they say in the Hindu tradition. There's no name, there's no form, there's no language that can talk about it. And so when you are that you are. You're that cannot be named, that cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. That's why I said, close your eyes, visualize all this. It's because it can only be experienced. And oneness with the Most High, oneness with God, and with what you are. Because how is the divine spark even created? It's an emanation of the divine supreme and absolute God, of the divine supreme being. It's direct emanation. You are a direct emanation, or a projection, right? So if it is a projection, and manifestation is the divine supreme being pouring a portion of itself, projecting a portion of itself in the same way. So you are that. It's like a drop when you put it in the sea. A drop of seawater, you put it in the sea. Can you tell it apart from the sea? From the ocean? You can't. You are one with the divine supreme God. The Lord, John 10:30, the Lord Christ says, I and the Father are one. And in the Gospel of Thomas, he says, if you can drink from my mouth, the Lord Christ says, if you can drink from my mouth, you will become as I am, and I and the Father are one, right? So, Gospel of Thomas is not in the Bible, so it was left out. Doesn't mean Thomas didn't write a Gospel. Anyway, it was found in Coptic, written in Coptic, in a jar in the 1930s in Egypt or something like that. Anyway, does that answer your question? Okay, that's a whole, we can talk about it for hours, but anyway. Darkness, God and darkness. I want to answer that next week, to be honest with you. It's 9:31.
Okay.
But we can start, remind me, and we can go over it, because it is that when you talk about God, and when I say God, I mean the divine supreme and absolute effulgence, the causeless cause. That is what is beyond our own imagination, beyond what we can even think, beyond what we can, the
So it's not the divine
supreme.
spark.
I'm talking about, when I talk about God, I'm talking about beyond the divine spark. The divine spark is an emanation of God.
Okay. Okay, I understand now.
You understand?
Yeah.
It's just like the divine spark, projects itself. The divine spark is a projection also. It's a manifestation of. It's an emanation of. You understand? Again, planting, right? It's like a tree. So,
What's a word for God in Hinduism or other language?
Param Brahman. Brahman is
Brahman.
brr. That brr. That's just like that.
Brahman.
Brahman, not Brahma, is different.
That's the other one.
That's the creator.
So
Brahman is
put the end
that,
down
and then
at the end.
Param Brahman is there's no highest. This is the highest. So the supreme God, Param Brahman, yeah. And so, and there are many other names, but it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is the divine supreme and absolute. There's no light or darkness. There's no pairs of opposites, because it's at that level is you can't think, you can't talk. That's why they say nothingness, but nothingness doesn't mean darkness. They call it nothingness because they call the emanation, an emanation of God, which is the divine spark, nothingness. So God is beyond nothingness. You understand? And you can't talk about it. Anyway, next week we'll talk about that. It's beyond light and darkness. But what that was referring to was that pure matter and energy with consciousness. Energy with consciousness, right, is divine energy with consciousness, right, is spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is divine energy with consciousness, meaning it has consciousness, it's alive, it's divine, it's a supreme being, right? And then you have matter, but it's saying that nothing is pure energy with consciousness, nothing is pure matter in this world. Nothing is pure energy, nothing is pure matter. So, because even pure energy has, it's like yin and yang. The white has a little dot of black, the black has a little dot of white, right? So, there's everything in everything here. But he's saying the closest thing would be a black hole is the closest thing to matter, to pure matter, right? And so, but what happens is originally where there was pure matter and there was pure energy with consciousness. When the pure matter was infused with spiritual energy with consciousness, creation happened. That's what it was talking about. That's what it meant as darkness. Is pure energy with consciousness being infused into the darkness. It does creation. It's myriads of colors and myriads of things and different things. The whole of creation. Okay. Anyway, I'll try to do it. Yes.
Just one quick question. Since we were discussing the similarities, or since we were discussing the similarities in the Egyptian and the Hawaiian languages when it came to this, at the end of the chapter on Netzach, it says that the Hawaiian Kahuna term for life energy is mana. Is that the same mana like that the Hebrews speak of in Exodus? Or can it be seen as the same?
Where is this?
This is the last page of the chapter for Netzach.
Okay. Mana, no, it's different. Mana is different. It's not the same. But the mana from the Hebrew tradition did have mana in it, which is mana is energy, right? It's prana, right? So that mana did have mana, but no, it's not the same. I don't believe it is the same. I could be wrong, but
I just wanted to ask.
But no, as far as we know, it's not the same. Okay, because energy like that, mana, in the Polynesian mana, in Polynesian, but the Maui mana, sorry, I made a mistake, so I apologize. But the Maui mana is ruach in Hebrew, prana in the Hindu tradition, chi in the Chinese tradition, ki in the Japanese and Korean tradition. Okay, so that's why it's not the same. But does it have ruach? Is it infused with prana? Yes, absolutely, yes. Anyway, I have to close, and then any other questions you can put in the comments below. We'll check them. You can actually go into the video, put questions. I'll answer them as much as I can. In there, was your questions, 3 questions answered? Did I answer the last question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, so shall we? Yeah. To the Divine Supreme and Absolute God, to my spiritual teacher, all spiritual teachers, holy angels, holy masters, all the saints, to the Divine Lord Christ, to the hierarchy of the divine holy angels and archangels, and to all the great ones. We humbly thank you for your divine and priceless blessings. Thank you for the priceless teachings, the priceless knowledge, and the priceless love. For the healing, the illumination, and the oneness, for the mercy and the wisdom and the understanding, harmony and peace. Thank you for the divine protection, divine guidance, and divine help. For divine presence in this session, we humbly thank you. With deep gratitude, respect, and love, thank you, thank you, thank you. Full faith, thank you. Amma Namaste, thank you for coming and participating with us. Amma Namaste. And if you want to just get notified, hit the notification, subscribe, and leave any comments below if you have any questions, comments. Okay? Thank you. Amma Namaste. Amma Namaste, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Amma Namaste. Amma Namaste. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're getting so good at it, I forget it's my
No,
job.
go ahead.
Oh, you didn't stop it?
No, it's here. Bye-bye. Thank you.